Hello, viewers, and welcome to the Team VVV podcast. I'm Alan, and today I'm joined by Martin.
Hello.
And Kevin.
Hi, guys.
Well, guys, it's been another action week for racing games. It all seems to be happening at once today as we're doing our recording. And one of the big games that's been announced this week is Ride 3, sequel to the big two Ride 1 and 2 big motorbike games, which were a lot of fun at the time. And they really sort of took the biking genre forward. There's a lot of potential for this game. The trailer is exciting, and what's also exciting is the potential of the contents. Over 230 bikes, 30 plus courses, and that's just in the standard pack. No doubt that'll be built upon. Kevin, you're a big fan of Ride. Tell me your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting stuff, isn't it? We've been waiting for this announcement for quite a while now, and of course it runs on the Unreal Engine 4, so you can expect sort of more crisper graphics in terms of, little details here and there. It just sort of elevates the whole visual elements. And I guess, I was a little bit surprised with the number of bikes, 230. I think Ride 2 had somewhere around the 200 mark, I believe. So it's not much more on top of what we've seen already, but hopefully they will take out some of the duplicate bikes in place of some more sort of unique, more unique bikes. So, if everything comes together, I think this could be one of the best bike games ever released. If they can put all these elements together. Ride 2, had a few issues here and there, but overall I found it to be, a very, very solid game. And of course, this game here, Ride 3, is certainly one of my highlights of the year. So yeah, I'm a big Ride fan. I'm very much looking forward to this. We don't know very much about it in terms of specific details, but visually it looks great. I'm sure it sounds pretty decent too. Based on Milestone's work on the MotoGP series recently, and of course MXGP as well, games like that. We've seen improvements in sounds. Hopefully Ride 3 can improve in sounds as well. And then it's all about making the career mode as interesting as possible. So yeah, with some Milestone games, they tend to throw a lot of events at you, and there's not much sort of cohesion going on with it. So hopefully they can put something together that although it has a lot of content, still makes you entices you to keep going, I guess. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with the career mode. But they certainly have got a lot of disciplines. You've got drag racing. You've got different real world tracks. You've got sort of fictional open sort of road areas as well. And there's just a nice sort of mix. So very much looking forward to seeing what comes out of this next.
Certainly. I mean, there was a clip in the trailer there that people picked up on. Looked a bit like the Isle of Man. Some of the tunnel of trees section. It'd be interesting to see what types of tracks they go for, whether they're all, or how many real life circuits there are, whether there's fantasy tracks, and what activities they give you to do with your bike and build upon the whole bike ownership. I mean, certainly one of the things that was highlighted there was the livery editor now, which has 3,000 layers you can put on your bike, which is tremendous in terms of designing every aspect of the bike to customize it to being just how you want it. Martin, your thoughts on Ride 3?
Yeah, like Kevin said, it has a lot of potential. I mean, this year has been a very competitive year for bike racing games. Obviously, we had TT Isle of Man earlier this year. Really, really difficult, really intense. So it'll be interesting to see how Ride 3 compares, because obviously Ride 2 introduced a lot of city courses, and it had the Northwest circuit as well. Interesting as well to see they're introducing night racing. I think that will help set it apart. I mean, Ride 2 really got all the fundamentals right, I think. The physics were a massive improvement. Visually, it was a step up. Like Kevin said, there's not a massive increase in bikes, but I get the feeling they're focusing more on sort of refining the tech a bit. Obviously, got the new Unreal Engine 4. I think that will really take it to the next level. I see they haven't improved the box art, though, from Ride 2. It's a bit lazy, to say the least.
I haven't seen the box art yet.
I believe it's at the end of the trailer. They've just literally put a bike against the background and said, that'll do.
Yes. I mean, there is that sort of one bike. They have what they call the hero car or bike on various different games. And I guess it depends on what the hero bike is as I quickly have a look for it. But it's a nice flashy trailer. Again, it's very early at this stage. But it's another step forward, isn't it, with the Unreal technology, in terms of maximizing it. I think what's interesting is the fact that all these Unreal games have had to be rebuilt from the ground up. So this isn't just Ride 2.5. This is Ride built from the ground up, brand new graphics, brand new physics, brand new game design. And it will be really interesting to see they put the elements together. I think, I mean, I am impressed at the speed that Milestone work in getting all of these games out there. I mean,
it's crazy.
It's amazing in the sense that, I mean, the amount of development that's gone on this year. I mean, you know, Monster Energy looks stunning, you know, on the PC in particular. You know, it's not like they're cutting corners in terms of progression and detail. I mean, they really are. You can tell every game they're listening to community and they're adding those elements in. They've put a lot of investment into audio. We're gradually seeing improvements there. We're seeing a bit of a change at the moment, of course, because they're moving to the new physics on the Unreal 4 and there's a transitional period, no doubt. But this all bodes very well for the future of the company in terms of their development. But they really do own the biking genre now. So, you know, good on Milestone in terms of what they're doing, but it'll be certainly competitive, I think, between them. And it'd be interesting to see if we get a sequel to Isle of Man at some point, and that builds a nice little competitive streak between Big Ben and Milestone in helping each other to move the bike genre forward, because Milestone really do need that competition, I think, to help them keep on their toes as well. But having said that, I know the developers are always very passionate when it comes to developing the genre. So lots of bikes. We expect lots of DLC, lots of tracks, weather conditions are shown there, nighttime. I think it's going to be potentially a huge package. And like you said, Martin, could be the best bike game since Tourist Trophy. You know, it really could be the one. So we wait and see on that. Now, another announcement which came out on the same day was F1 2018. The logo has been shown with obviously new F1 logo and new bubble art there as of 2018. And that's all they've shown at the moment is the logo. No images of the game. One can only assume that that's waiting to be cleared by FOM in terms of clearing all the images. There's always a lot to get done in terms of administration behind the scenes with Formula One. But they've mentioned here as well something about headlines and, you know, bringing back a few elements in terms of press conferences and stuff like that might be coming back, and talk of more of the older F1 cars coming back as well, historical F1 cars, should I say. And it'll be interesting to see what cars they're going to bring back and what circuits as well. You know, hopefully, I would love to see. I think that was something we liked about F1 2013 was they had Jerez and Brands Hatch, and having retro or historical F1 cars is one thing, but having the tracks to race them on really adds a lot. And I think I remember at the time playing a lot of Portugal as well, really added to it. We just needed more cars, really. I think that's the thing, you know, having Williams versus Ferrari, you know, or Williams versus Ferrari and McLaren, it's just not enough. There's so many old classics out there. It'd be really nice to see which ones they can bring back this time. Thoughts, Martin, on this, on F1?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's great to see that they are adding more historical content. I do think in F1 2017, it did feel like a bit of almost like a teaser of what's to come. But yeah, I mean, if they expand the right elements, if they improve the career mode, I think it's going in the right direction. I like the sound of them adding more sort of immersion into the world of F1, like you said, holding press conferences and things like that. It's all these sort of features really appeal to the fans, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, they've always listened to the fans, and I think they had a pretty much a perfect game last year, really, in terms of where they are with F1 2017.
Games.
It was. I mean, it was as good as it could possibly have been as a Formula One game last year. That's not to say it was perfect. There were some online issues and stuff like that, but in terms of what they were achieving, putting together in the package, it really over-delivered. So, you know, anything that builds on that means it's just going to be rock solid now. And also there's more investment going into Formula One, especially with eSport. So we're going to start seeing the results of that investment. Maybe not this year, but certainly next year in particular. You're really going to see that development going in there because F1 want their game to look as good as possible because they're displaying it to millions of people. And that's only going to be good for the franchise. So F1 2018. Next thing is the Onrush beta. has been revealed this week. Kevin, you have the Onrush beta code. Have you? I mean, I don't think there's any kind of embargo in terms of what we're allowed to talk about. I think you can talk about your impressions of the beta so far, but how have you been finding it? Bearing in mind it's a development build.
Yeah, I mean, it is what I expected. Basically, it's a very accessible game that you can get into instantly, basically, and have a bit of fun with it. You know, it doesn't have massive layers of depth, but then it's not really going for that market. You know, it's very much enticing people into the racing genre that perhaps is not usually interested. So it takes all these sort of elements from other genres, including like first-person shooters and stuff, and you know, just sort of online-based games like Rocket League, etc. And it just sort of it adds these elements to. I don't even really want to call it a racing game, because it isn't really a racing game, because it doesn't sort of have a finishing line. You don't have positions to race for. It's very unusual. It's like an objective-based, team-based racer, but it's very hard to sort of put into a category. You know, this is where it sort of stands out from the crowd, because it is just so unique. I don't believe we've ever had a game such as this before. So it's visually, it looks like Motorstorm. So you would think, okay, so this is going to be like Motorstorm. It's from the same developer after all. But when you get on there, of course, it's very unlike Motorstorm, you know. So it has 4 game modes, I understand, 2 of which are available in the beta. And I just worry a little bit that perhaps 4 game modes is a little bit too slim in terms of number to keep people engaged for any length of time. I worry that I might not be playing this in 6 months' time, because I just worry if it does, you know, does it have the depth? Does it have enough there to keep people coming back? And that's, you know, it's under a lot of competition. Even in just the month of June, we're seeing 4 pretty high-profile racing releases.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's one of those games where, in a way, I'm kind of not wanting to go too much into it at the moment. I'm going to decide when we see the final game, because it's changed a lot since the early build. They've added quite a lot of new modes to it, and I need to, I think, play at home. I think lack of depth, lack of the actual, for me, it's the driving experience at its core. Wasn't doing anything for me. It was just an object looking in the distance, and it didn't feel like the terrain needed to be sort of navigated in any way. You just kept going in a straight line, jumping over jumps and whatever was in your way. There was no detail there, and I felt that was something which I sort of was hoping for more. I think also there was one thing as well that you had in Motorstorm, was you had the risk reward factor in terms of your boost. If you boosted too much, you blew your own car up. So I thought was quite interesting, because often you'd be boosting in Motorstorm right to, it was like 1 millimeter left, just to try and win the race. And there's nothing like that here. There's no risk reward in that same way. So it's just an element that, I'm not saying copy it, but it would have been nice to have had some other risk reward elements in terms of.
It very much strips things back to the extreme basics. So you have a very simplified handling model. Like you say, there's not a lot to it. You know, you can zip the car or vehicle left and right very easily, and like you say, the terrain doesn't provide a massive obstacle for the most part. I mean, there are pinch zones where the track gets very slim, which we haven't really seen in the beta yet, but there are tracks out there that provide more challenge in that sort of sense. But they're going for simplicity very much so, and that applies just about to every area within the game, including the handling.
Yeah, interesting. So Onrush is a game we'll come back to in a few weeks' time, when we've all got a copy, and we'll wait for the final game, and then we'll definitely do a team chat, I think, and have a good chat about that one. Certainly something to look forward to. It's important to Codemasters. It's important to the team that does well, and it'll be interesting to see how it's received. I think it could be quite a divisive game in terms of how it's received in a few weeks' time. Now, one of the other games, of course, this week has been MotoGP 18. Everything you need to know. Martin, tell us everything we need to know.
Yeah, they've had a bit of a information blowout this week, haven't they, on MotoGP 18? On the eve of announcing Ride 3 as well. My goodness, they're busy at Milestone at the moment. But yeah, they're describing it as a reboot for the series, which is interesting. So it's been developed from the ground up. You've got the new Unreal Engine 4, as we saw with MXGP 3, which should obviously make the graphics look a little more gritty and realistic. But also, the physics have been reworked as well. They're promising more realism. the more immersive career mode as well. So there's definitely a lot of new features at the moment. I think I'm most interested in the new damage system. I think that.
Oh, really? I would never would have thought that.
I know, I'm just so predictable. But in all seriousness,
Don't drive backwards, though.
I just spent a lot of my time in racing games driving the wrong way when I was younger, I must admit. Deliberately. But yeah, I just like the idea of the races having a bit more consequence when you make a mistake. Because obviously in Master games you can just use the rewind feature and you're fine. But in this case, if you turn all of that off and then also apply the full damage system, it does sound like it will present more of a challenge than previous games in the series.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the highlights of this year. I mean, again, it's a brand new MotoGP game. The whole game has basically been built from the ground up, and obviously Unreal 4 engine, brand new physics engine, as well as the the bikes, bike collisions. I was thinking there's the what is there? There's something else. Bike collisions and something else.
The tyre wear, isn't it?
Tyre wear. That's what I was thinking of. That's what I was thinking of cars. I was thinking of tyre wear. Tyre wear. There's of course the tyre wear this time. It's going to be interesting to see how that works. Milestone used to have this in the past. They used to have sort of a bit of a live track system years ago where you'd rubber in the circuit on SBK years ago. So it's interesting to see them bring it back and how will it work. So I think that in terms of the esports, they want to bring the esports to be as close to real life as possible. And that means making the physics as good as they can possibly be, but have all the elements in terms of tires, tire temperature, deg, everything else going on. So it certainly is, an interesting package they're putting together. I think in terms of, I think the depth this year is going to be in the development of the riding than in anything else.
Exactly. It seems like they're doubling down on the core aspects, the riding, the physics, the tyre model or damage. It seems like they're stripping things back, but for the greater good of the series, Yeah. We have some TV style cameras as well. There's cutscenes. So it's like they're going a bit closer to the sport, like the sort of the raw elements of the sport they're trying to capture like never before. So this could be a bit of a sleeper hit, I think, this year, if it turns out all well, because they certainly seem to be doubling down on what's really important, and that's the riding,
I feel like they kind of did that as well with last year's game, because obviously it was restricted a bit by the in-house engine, but they really focused on the core fundamentals. They improved the handling, they vastly improved the audio, which I hope will be retained in MotoGP 18, because it was excellent in 17. Really visceral, raw sounding engine sounds. So if they can further improve on what they achieved in MotoGP 17, I think it has a lot of potential. But I think because it is being built from the ground up again, maybe sort of tap your expectations a little bit, because I think there will be a few elements missing. Like, for example, I think the managerial career mode has been removed, for example, from last year.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on what you think of the managerial piece. Was it fluff that you didn't really need, or I guess some people would like that and some people don't. So it's all about what you're after, really. And I feel that this will probably be a good thing for the series to really go back, get the things right, like the cutscenes. We're always asking to capture the sport more with these sort of cutscenes and a bit of fan service, So hopefully, if it all goes well, I really
want to improve the career mode as well. I think that's something that has been lacking a bit in recent titles, because they've been focusing on, because obviously it is an annual series, we can't expect a miracle development. But on the other hand, I think that is an area that does need improving.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I mentioned it recently, didn't I? That they're sort of in a place that Codemasters were in 3 years ago when they switched to their new graphics engine for F1 2015, and that's kind of where Milestone are right now. They're 2 years behind, if you like, and I think that in the next 2-3 years, it's going to be really interesting to see how the MotoGP title evolves. It could look very special in the years to come, and in a way, I kind of feel we're sort of in this sort of limbo at the moment in terms of the current consoles are not quite powerful enough to deliver, and the next gen consoles are really going to deliver in every way. I think it's exciting at the moment because you can see when you see some of the limitations right now, just where we're going with these games and making them look like real sports events. You know, I talk to developers about, you know, the restrictions in terms of what you can do and can't do in terms of the limitations of performance of the console. And there's a lot they want to do right now that they can't do. And it's going to be really interesting to see all of that come together. So MotoGP, yeah, very interesting. I just think it's interesting that Milestone announced Ride 3 pretty much the same time they're revealing MotoGP. It just seems like surely you're announcing a competitor. I mean, wouldn't it be better to release MotoGP and then tell people about Ride? I mean, maybe that's the salesman in me, but it just does seem to sometimes be a sort of common sense that you release a bike game before announcing the next bike game. Otherwise, a lot of people might just say, do you know what? I might just wait for Ride to be my bike game and stick with something else, you know. So there is always that sort of mentality to it. I find a bit strange of just, you know, putting 3 bike games out at the same time.
And not to mention releasing them on the same day as other key titles.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, MotoGP comes out 48 hours after Onrush, and MXGP Pro comes out the same day as the Crew 2. So that's going to be something interesting. And that takes us neatly to the Crew 2. Of course, the beta has been announced going live at the end of the month, which is going to be quite interesting. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that comes along and how the game develops in these last few weeks as well. Viewers will have seen the first team chat has gone up on the channel. Still a lot. There's quite a bit of content that's still sort of waiting to be shown. And I look forward to sharing more of that in the coming weeks. And there's a few announcements that they may not have made, maybe even something holding back for E3. So we'll wait and see between now and the end of June. There's still a lot to come together on the Crew. So it's certainly an epic package and has all the potential to be amazing. There's no doubt about that. There's so much to see and do. I think the main thing, like we said, it discussed in that video, is going to be, is it going to be the sum of its parts? We'll just have to wait and see. A couple of small bits of news. What do we got here? NASCAR launches iRacing based youth eSports series. That'd be interesting. Of course, NASCAR's always been very well. It's the backbone of iRacing, isn't it? Really, in terms of their US heritage there, and of course the 2018 spec IndyCar potentially coming to Forza Motorsport 7. It depends really. I mean, I've always found, as I say, the physics for me a little bit limited on Forza Motorsport 7, but it's great that this series it really does deserve its own title. That's how I kind of feel about IndyCar. I'd love to see IndyCar just get its own game, a bit like Rallycross. Really seems to be one of those licenses that's just sort of being bandied about, but not getting its own game. Surely it has an audience out there that can make its own game. And we've also got a kart racer as well, the Karters, releasing on Steam. Looks a bit dodgy. Have you seen it, Kevin?
Yeah, it's like it's quite a fast-paced game, isn't it? It sort of takes an interesting angle behind the kart. It's quite far away, isn't it? And you get your sort of drift going on. It seems like you've got a really sort of epic drift mechanic in there, and it's based on sort of Crash Team Racing. It was heavily inspired by that. So, I expect it to be quite a fun game. Hopefully, if it all comes together, we won't have long to wait either. So, if I get hold of that game, look forward to that.
Yeah, we'll see if we get some gameplay on it. It might be a lot of fun there. And fruit racing as well. That's another one we've got to look out for at some point. There's quite a lot of little indie games coming out as well. My goodness, isn't it busy for driving games right now? I mean, all of these games require so much time to really get into. And it's like we were talking about Trailblazers last week. They're just getting sort of swallowed up in the sea of driving games coming out at the moment. It really is so busy. Plus those that are already on the market. And
Horizon Chase Turbo came out this week as well, speaking of indie titles.
It did. Horizon Chase Turbo. We're going to have some footage of that coming on, hopefully on PC and Xbox, coming on the channel. And it's a reasonable amount of fun. I've played it a little bit at the moment, but I am going to run some videos on the channel using my amazing outrun skills. In a way, it hasn't necessarily used any significant skill to play in terms of the early tracks yet that I've been playing. You just kind of turn into corners and lift off and get back on the power again, and that's about it really. It's more about judicious use of your boost, because you only get a few of those, and so it's just knowing where the straights are, where you can maximize your speed, or when you get a couple of cars in front of you, it's knowing when to use the boost to get past trouble. Because occasionally when you get 2 or 3 cars in front of you, it can be very tricky with the twitchiness of your car to get through on a lane when there's only a very small gap there. So it was something we're going to look at, but certainly visually it's very Outrun. Love the look of it.
Don't forget, it was originally designed for mobiles.
It was designed for mobiles, so of course it has that simplistic nature, doesn't it? And of course that's why it's adapted now to have multiplayer as well, which is really nice to see the split screen multiplayer option. So it'll be interesting to see on the PS4 how it looks. Certainly,
I'm quite keen to see that.
It'd be interesting to see how well it comes across. In a way, it kind of reminds me of what was that game that we were 90s arcade racer.
Oh yes,
it keeps popping into my head now and again. But it's a real shame that game just seemed to. It's vaporware, isn't it now?
Supposedly being renamed to, was it 90s Arcade GP?
Really, 90s?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
and that was, I think that was last summer that came out, and yes, that was nearly a year ago.
It's a bit like that kart game, wasn't there? A karting one that was. It was they even had a big stand for it at Gamescom about 4 years ago, and it's still not being released. And that was actually, I remember we were previewing that in 2011.
Which game was that?
It was a karting game. I forget which karting game it was now.
Simulations.
Yeah, karting sim. Yeah, and it was. They even had at Gamescom 2014. They had a full-size kart on a motion system with people using VR, and it looked like it was.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was nearly going to come out. It looked like it was all going to happen, and just sort of vanishes again. So yeah, I mean, vaporware is everywhere, but certainly it's a very busy time. So June is really busy. July is going to be the usual dead month, but that's fine because you're going to have so many racing games to play. We're just going to stick with what we've got, and then it's all going to really kick off in August. Gamescom, we've got F1 coming out at the end of the month. We've got V Rally 4. We'll have no doubt a new Forza Horizon, Ride 3 later in the year, and other stuff we don't know about yet.
Hopefully some Wreckfest as well.
Hopefully some Wreckfest. We are keeping an eye on that. And we'd like to get some coverage on that when it comes to. I mean, they are working on it now, and I believe there's going to be some more of it shown very soon as well. So interesting to see how Wreckfest has developed. Certainly one for you there, Martin.
Absolutely. There could also be a new Codemasters game later in the year, judging from some of their suggestive tweets, shall we say, this week.
Yeah, could be. What do we think it's going to be? Grid? Do you think Grid?
Grid, surely.
It's got to be Grid, isn't it?
Games,
it can't be another dirt title. No, it's got to be Grid. It's got to be Grid.
We got what, 5 dirt titles and about 3.
The question is, would you call it Grid 3 or Grid 4?
That's true.
I think it'd be Grid 3. I think Grid Autosport was a separate one out of the numbered series.
Well, spin-off, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I think they could call it Grid 3.
2 in many ways.
It was better than Grid 2. And there was a lot of good ideas and good stuff in Grid 2. And Grid Autosport really brought it all together and was a lot of fun. It was just such a shame that it wasn't converted to the PS4 and Xbox One. It just seemed...
a bit like GT6, wasn't it? It was a similar sort of release window. And we just assumed they'd do a higher res version, but they didn't, unfortunately.
Wasted opportunity, really.
Yeah.
Massive wasted opportunity. And, when you saw the frame rate on Grid 2, on, say, Xbox 360, it was all over the place on PlayStation. My goodness. Yeah. I mean, it was absolutely shocking. Racing around Dubai on Grid 2, I think it was shocking on the PlayStation 3. I mean, it was almost unplayable. So it was a shame they just didn't release a nice 60 frames per second version on these consoles. But either way, Grid is likely to be the one, we think. And then there's lots of other racing games, isn't there? Like we've talked about Test Drive Unlimited 3. Would be great to see that at some point, but who knows for the future. And we've got Grip coming out later in the year as well. So lots to look forward to. But anyway, I think that's all of it for the news this week. And pretty soon, eventually, we'll get back to your questions, viewers, and picking up on those. Once we get back into the swing of things here, we'll be doing all of that. And we'll be talking to you guys a lot about our plans for the summer as well. Big plans for the summer. Watch this space. Interesting things happening there. And if you'd like to contribute, in some way to what we do at Team VVV, do let us know, in the comments, get in touch. And like you say, we're always looking for new contributors in terms of video and written content. So do let us know there. But other than that, that's it from me for now, from the guys. Is that it, guys? Any other key aspects you wanted to bring up this week?
No, I think that's it.
That's about covered it this week then. So that's it in terms of all the key news this week. There'll be a lot to focus on next week and more reaction and reflection on obviously the Ride 3 and keeping ear to the ground. We've got a developer interview coming on that as well, and developer interviews on MXGP Pro and MotoGP 18. So great coverage and some exclusive gameplay on the way. That's it from me and from the guys for now, and there'll be more from us very soon.